I have no idea what happened here. I just saw, like, a couple of tweets about this. Apparently, like, Trash Taze brought on, Hasan. Which is, like, interesting. Why would you do that? I don't know. But yeah, Asmongold and the Trash Taste Backlash has broken Hasan Piker. Interesting, by Residence Desu. Let's just see. Let's just see what happened here. I'm curious. What has happened here?
Hey, what's up guys, Riff here. So today we're going to be talking briefly about Hasan Piker. Now I think everyone watching this video is aware of his long history of unhinged takes. However, I believe
the racism he does, he brings on actual terrorists on stream and stuff. It's very how do you put it? Very interesting. Very interesting. His group is the reason why there was this, why a lot of like advertisers pulled out of Twitch, funnily enough.
Some of this rhetoric has definitely increased over the past week or two because his most valuable currency, his ego, has been threatened by two.
What? Interesting. How is that a currency? The very own ego. That's interesting.
Events, and they're both relevant to the type of topics we talk about on this channel, hence why we're making this video today. Those two events are the Trash Taste podcast situation, as well, in his own words, his dethroning as the top political streamer on Twitch by Asmongold. Now, when I say in...
Wait, what? Asmongold went full political? I guess, sure.
Increasingly unhinged takes. I'm more saying the frequency at which he makes these unhinged statements. In fact, during the whole Trash Taste podcast situation from about a week ago, his immediate response was talking about things including his idea of having a terrorist propaganda tier list live on Twitch, which obviously if he did that, he would face no punishment. In fact, you'd probably get a special...
What? That would get every normal person banned. Like, if I, for example, did something like that on YouTube, I'd be banned. That stream would be gone immediately. What the heck? Are people actually allowed to do that on that platform? What the fuck?
Special cameo, another birthday song from Dan Clancy.
But then again, he brought in actual terrorists on stream
himself. So what am I talking about? Well, this is the clip making the rounds right now on social media. Let's give this a quick listen.
There's about $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone. No.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him a prominent part of the Republican Party.
There's about...
Yep, that's...
completely unhinged. Okay. Like, you can't win against them politically, so you must delete them because your own politics sucks so much that people would probably, like I said, people would probably pick people that have committed crimes over somebody who does bad politics at this point.
Hasan directing people to kill a sitting U.S. senator. Normally that would get you a knock on your door from the FBI at the very least, but I think everyone looking at this objectively would say if you were a regular streamer, you would not only be banned for saying this, you'd probably be permabanned. You would never come back to this platform. And also what makes this even more hilarious is the fact that not even a year ago, he made a similar threat to another U.S. official with...
What the fuck? Never mind.
This quote tweet here sharing this image, which for context was the weapon that was crafted to assassinate the former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. So he has a history of doing this, And like I said, right now, I want to look at the two events that I think are kind of making him spiral because his ego is being challenged in ways that don't sit well with him. The first one, as I said, is the...
Funny, but then I think, I could be wrong, but I think he currently lives in Japan. Look at that nice dislike ratio, 70k dislikes to 22 likes. That worked probably pretty well, I would assume. That looks successful, I would assume.
The Trash Taste podcast situation. For those who didn't watch my video a few days ago about this, he went on as a special guest to this Trash Taste podcast, which is run by the Anime Man, CDawg VA, as well as Giguk, three prominent channels in the anime content creation space. And as you can see, people reacted very, very negatively to this. And as I said, I respect the boys who run this podcast. I think generally they have good intentions with things, but I think they grossly miscalculated how people would respond to his appearance as a special guest on the podcast. They even said they expected like a few negative comments. I definitely don't think they expected 99% of the comments to be negative in regards to the choice of special guest. And when we covered this about 6 days ago, the like-dislike ratio was pretty much 50-50. It was like 15,000 dislikes, 14,000, or 15,000 likes, 14,000 dislikes.
Interesting. Like, how can you miscalculate that much? That is the problem. How can you miscalculate that much? The thing is, like, at that point, I would rather question what was going on in their heads. And I would assume nothing went on. Quite literally nothing.
And now it's up to 70,000 dislikes, and it only grew to 22,000 likes. Now, I don't think this is fully a criticism of Trash Taste. I think this is more of a repudiation of Hasan Piker. As I pointed out in the previous video, he's been on the podcast before, but that was about 2 years ago, and I don't think a lot of people were as informed about some of his unhinged beliefs. And now that people are more familiar thanks to a lot of videos calling him out, this is what people think of Hasan in anything he is a part of. And they are making it very well known in the dislike ratio there.
But then again, I have to question if people know that much how difficult Hasan of a person is, then I would question if they really thought through when bringing him on there. Or if they... I think this is much less of like, I don't care, just bring him on. More so than actually looking into like his background and knowing what's going on. Because I don't believe that these guys don't know who he is.
Also, overall, that also was the result after he begged his own community to counter what he claimed was a brigade on him and the podcast episode, and that only made things worse, by the way. But clearly his ego was very hurt by this. I think he went outside his own community and saw how badly he was received, and I think it made him very upset. Hence why he asked his own audience to go and try to remedy the situation. And we get it, right? Like, everyone who's on the internet and has some level of controversy attached to them, which I would say applies to
Hasan mauls while reading hate comments from his Trash Taste podcast episode. Directs his audience get in and actively counter the brigade. To be fair, that's kind of pathetic. Like, do you really care that much? It's like one podcast, wow.
So pretty much everyone we're talking about today at some level. You're going to deal with people who are going to make viral tweets, hating on you and things like that. You're not going to be well liked by everyone outside your community. But I think it's a little different when your mere presence on anything will draw a ton of negativity. And that's what's going on with Hasan Piker. And I think it's pretty obvious he's seeing this first and foremost and very clearly with the Trash Taste podcast. And it's just not going over well with him. Now, that's the first event I'm talking about here. I want to get to the second event, and that's, of course, the Rat King himself, Asmongold.
The Rat King, huh? Funny how you get turned into a rat if you don't come in. I guess here he is in human form.
In Hasan's own words, he has now overtaken the top spot as political streamer on Twitch. This is a label that Asmon doesn't even care for, and he still considers Hasan the top political streamer because it's not the only thing that Asmongold does. While it's still a good portion, it's not the only thing he does. But yeah, to Hasan, this stuff matters. The numbers.
Also fun, here's a little fun fact. Twitch apparently makes it now so in the future that everyone can receive bits and stuff. Isn't that funny? Because I wonder if Asmongold's second account has something to do with that. Because his second account is not monetized, therefore it's costing the millions, which is really funny. I think that's funny.
Matter. The labels matter because it's, you know, attached to his ego. I think that's very obvious. And this clip right here is really telling of that. He's going after Asmongold and basically blaming him for a rise of right-wing sentiment permeating throughout the streaming world and honestly throughout the world is really what he's implying in many cases. And he again brings up the numbers and seems very insecure about it. Let's give this a quick listen.
If there wasn't such a high density of hogs that were like literally looking desperately for some kind of hog content on Twitch, which led to a massive amount of people gravitating towards Asmongold and Asmongold getting like fucking 50K every day doing right-wing commentary, none of these motherfuckers would do this, okay? They just wouldn't.
Okay, so first of all, calling Asmongold right-wing is hilarious. I think most people would view him as a centrist. He's a guy who is on many different occasions, including recently said he wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. So if he's some right-wing pundit, he's not a very good one, let's be honest. But this is the
thing is, you have to consider this, right? Every time they say right-wing, they usually mean everything that's not their opinion. That's usually how that works.
Deal here. So he's at first implying that people are only speaking out on certain things and criticizing certain things and sharing certain opinions because Asmongold basically made it okay and they want to grift, right? They see the numbers he pulls and they want to emulate those numbers. It's only about numbers and popularity with whatever they're sharing, and now they're being emboldened by Asmongold. And I think that's, number one, pretty insidious. It's basically implying that there are a lot of people out there who have these beliefs, but were afraid to say them because, well, let's face it, the last half a decade or so, cancel culture has been a real thing. If you had wrong think or you criticize...
Yeah, if you had wrong think, Hakai. Just die. Good riddance. Hi, Lumpy, Hasan Jelly. Yeah. He's a goopy guy now, because apparently Asmongold is now top #1 political streamer, which, sure, I guess. Huh. I don't know. This is just like, I agree. There has been a lot of like, if you don't share the right opinion, you're practically like, you were executed on the spot. That has changed. It's just like the tides have turned. Oh no, look how the table turns.
Criticize the wrong thing, your life could literally be over. And now that sort of phase is dying out and people are finally speaking up. And speaking up for what turns out to be the majority opinion in many regards. And I think the reason Asmongold is so popular, especially right now, is because his opinion on things is not right-wing or left-wing or anything like that. It's just common sense. It's the type of opinion that the average person would at least have a somewhat positive view of. They may not agree with everything he's saying, but they might at least find what he's saying to be reasonable and not something extreme like sympathizing with terrorists or something like that. If you ask...
What you try to say is people like logic and like reasonable thinking? Yeah. Like, that makes sense.
90% of the people, what they thought about his average take, I think they wouldn't have much of a problem with it. And he has proven that through his views, I mean, every video getting around 1 million+ views on pretty much every political topic, he's proven that a lot of these opinions are popular. And I think that has emboldened people not to grift off of that, but to think, oh, I can actually share my opinions on things, and this is actually popular right now, and I'm not going to get a brigade of people trying to cancel me and ruin my life for criticizing what they might consider the wrong thing. Okay, and no content creator is ever perfect, okay? But again, in this sort of conversation between Asmongold and Hasan, who's going to relate more to the common person with their views? Like, I think we're talking about some pretty common viewpoints versus extreme ones. And I think it's pretty obvious which one of those labels applies to each person in this scenario. And like it or not, in this...
The funny part is, like, Hasan, again, I think, lives in Japan, but he hates people that are conservative. So he now lives in a country that he technically does not like. But wait, it's anime queued country, world country. So you know, that balances it out.
particular situation, but the general population voted for this sort of stuff. And, you know, again, we're talking about the labels here, but let's hear a little more, because he's very upset about losing this top spot.
That's it. For a lot of people, it's not like a genuinely held perspective. For many of them, they just don't care. It comes from a place of like, I don't really give a shit. I don't really necessarily give a shit about politics, but I see that this is like getting clout. And the perfect example I can give you is when the most prominent voice of politics on the platform before this last round was myself.
He's mentioned it twice in 30 seconds. Have you seen that? Any clip you find of Hasan right now is mentioning that he has fallen behind Asmongold in this race for the top position of political streamer on Twitch, which is a lone race because Asmongold doesn't even care for the label. But again, with this whole general population label he's giving, the general population is not agreeing with you right now on all these things. I think a lot more people are agreeing with the takes that Asmongold has because, again, they represent what most normal people think. They're not as extreme as a bunch of wackadoos on Twitter or Reddit will try to make you feel like they are. But proof of that really shows just in the coverage of the Trash Taste podcast situation. Look at the way people agree with this. The like-dislike ratio, 54,000 likes versus around...
I mean, there we have it. If people were like... When he was saying, like, it's not that many, and people don't, the vast majority of people really don't agree with him, but they also don't care, like, just compare it. Almost pretty much 700 dislikes versus 54,000 likes. And on Trash Taste, we have, like, 22k likes and, like, 70k dislikes. Yeah, it does not add up.
700 dislikes. That's roughly a 98% like-dislike ratio on a very controversial topic, directly talking about this relevant situation involving Hasan. I think, again, it shows he has a pretty agreeable opinion even on some more controversial topics. And let's not forget, the clip in particular that fueled this entire conversation was this right here. This was a Worcester, Massachusetts City Council vote where a group of LGBT people wanted to make the city a sanctuary for transgender and gender diverse people. And this is what we were talking about.
Oh, funny how that came up from like yesterday with Amaranth. I remember that. Which is interesting. This episode, I haven't heard this yet. Yeah, they brought Hasan onto their podcast, which really backfired. You have like a 80% dislike ratio. It is tremendous. That was not well thought through.
And then Hasan was upset about some comments that Amaranth, of all people, made about this. And first of all, if you're listening to anything Amaranth has to say about pretty much anything, you've already kind of lost. But anyways, they're basically trying to say, Hasan's trying to say that Asmongold and people like that have radicalized people to say all these crazy, unhinged things, referring to their criticisms of this clip. Now, of course, most people find this to be crazy. Let's watch what we're talking about here.
If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
I'm shaking right now. I don't want to be here. I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life?
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
I speak as both.
If 2 of your I'm gonna straight up say it. If 2 of your children are trans, something went wrong. The likelihood of that happening go towards like 0.000000000 something. I don't think that happens. I don't think that I mean, it can happen, but that the chances of that are astronomically low. The last time he was over, not gonna lie, it was a good episode. Yeah, but then you know what he's talking about, and then it's over. It's not particularly about the episode, it's what Hasan says, like, on the internet. I mean, bro brought a literal terrorist onto his stream. Bro, is okay with physically eliminating political opponents. He is special. Those people are insane. I mean, some of them certainly are insane.
The B and the T in the LGBT.
I'm multiply disabled. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here, so I had to hide from my driver that I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do in drag.
I do not want to be here. It's my day off. I do not want to be in your DMs.
Is that a zombie? Why do you do look dead? What? I actually think people are hunting them. Nobody's hunting them. The vast majority of people don't care. Yeah, that wasn't a good look. None of what Hasan is just as bad as everything else is extremist. It's just that he's on the extreme left. I don't like extremism, no matter where it comes from.
I do not want to be in your email inboxes. I do not want my creativity writing diss tracks like Kendrick. I don't want to spend an hour applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me.
You guys literally made her put that glitter on her face. But anyways, this is an example of the type of clip you show 90% of people in the world and they'll be like, yeah, that's weird. This looks like a blue sky meetup, okay? These people...
That's wild. A blue sky meetup? That's wild. a blue sky meetup is crazy.
Are unhinged, and these are the type of people calling you a bigot and a freak on social media, right? But that's what we're talking about here, and this is Asmongold's coverage of that clip that is being referenced in this entire situation, and you can see how people viewed his opinion that is basically stating this is a clown show, right? And I think people agree. 81,000 likes.
Of course people agree. And even if you consider that, the vast majority of people, a big part of people still clicked on this video and did not dislike. What could that mean? I don't really like either of them. One has a really extreme stance and one has practically no stance. Yeah. Again, I wouldn't say Asmongold has no stance. He's just a centrist. I mean, he wanted to originally vote for Bernie Sanders.
500 dislikes. That's a 99 plus like-dislike ratio on 2.5 million views, by the way. So this left the ether of the monolith of Asmongold's followers. Clearly, a lot of people agree that this is outlandish behavior. And I don't think this is some right-wing extremism. I don't think Asmongold is influencing anyone. I think he's speaking a commonly held belief about stuff like this. Okay? This is a clown show. You show this to a regular person, they probably agree. And that's really all there is to say about this, because we also see how deep this goes. He is directly blaming Asmongold.
Hasan implies Amaranth was radicalized by Asmongold? What? They are nothing alike. They have nothing to do with each other. Zero. I mean, even Amaranth's viewership has nothing to do with politics. They're all just gooners. What do you mean? There is no connection. What?
Asmongold for causing all this radicalization. The irony, by the way.
Why they're saying
This is, in many ways, no different than when Elon Musk hits the fucking Sig Heil. Other people do it too, and it...
Can you let this go? This is a autistic man having an awkward moment with his hands. I could show you multiple pictures of left-wing and right-wing politicians doing the exact same salute. But it isn't a salute. It's just a hand gesture. The intention at the end matters. It's a bit unflattering, sure. What?
Normalizes that kind of attitude. It normalizes that kind of politics. And it's precisely the same thing that's happening here, okay? Asmongold says a bunch of unhinged shit, and he's popping off. Other content creators see that, as I've told you before, and they respond to it. They see that, and they go, ooh, I can get in on this as well.
So what he's saying is content creators like Asmongold are normalizing unhinged.
Yeah, because people care about Amaranth's political opinion. He is having the best mental gymnastics I've seen.
Behavior and normalizing very dangerous things people are saying. Let me just remind us of where we started this video.
About $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone. No.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott.
That's how we started the video. Okay, we're not even getting into the terrorist sympathizing and the platforming of terrorists and the comments about 9/11 and all these crazy unhinged things that literally go on a list that's so long it's hard to keep track of what's going on. But yeah, this is the person angry at you for normalizing what? Looking at a very bizarre scene and saying, yeah, that's a bunch of weird people. I don't know. There's really nothing else to say on this situation. Two real pain points for Hasan that have struck his most valuable currency, which is his ego, of course. And that's the Trash Taste podcast situation that has only gotten worse for him. And then, of course, getting dethroned as the top political streamer on...
Yeah, dethroned for a throne Asmongold isn't even fighting for. That's crazy. He is crazy. He is crazy. He's crazy. He's occasionally very much hypocritical. He said he thinks girls deserve to get raped because they're rich. Very interesting take. Other stuff as well. I think America deserved the plane incident.
Twitch, which is clearly two things that have hurt his ego a lot. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below.
My thoughts is this man is a moron. Apparently his ego is really fragile. That he has to send his own people to the podcast he was on to fight the negative publicity. Not much to say here. Not much to say here. Really not much to say here.